My name is Sarah Elizabeth Coleman, and I am a 37-year-old stay-at-home mother from Bend, Oregon. What I'm about to share with you is my near-death experience testimony of what happened when Jesus showed me the shocking truth about the 12 apostles. I literally saw and experienced their martyrdom, the challenges they faced while spreading their faith, and most strikingly, how the 12 apostles of Jesus were killed. But before we start, please let me know where you're listening from. It will be nice to feel closer, even if we're physically apart. Also, don't forget to like and comment on what you thought about this near-death experience testimony. Let's have a fair and open discussion so we can learn from each other on this channel. Enjoy listening. It was 7:43 a.m. on September 15, 2024. I remember the exact time because my morning had been meticulously planned. I had a few errands to run before picking up groceries for the week and was trying to focus on the road. The roads were slick from an early morning drizzle, and I was running late for my first stop. Then the semi-truck came out of nowhere. Screeching tires, shattering glass, a violent spin, then silence. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the mangled remains of my minivan. I was surrounded by a light so profound, so intense, yet so gentle, that it seemed to penetrate every cellular memory of my existence. And then I saw him, Jesus. Not the sanitized, pastel-colored image from church paintings. This was a presence of raw, overwhelming power and infinite compassion. His eyes held centuries of understanding, pain, love, and redemption. "Sarah," he said, "I want to reveal the true stories of my apostles, the unfiltered raw truth that has been hidden, misunderstood, and often deliberately obscured." What followed was a revelation so profound, so brutally honest, that it would forever shatter the comfortable narratives of modern Christianity. Jesus didn't just tell me their stories. He immersed me completely in their experiences, their pain, their doubts, their ultimate sacrifices. Each apostle's journey was a complex tapestry of human frailty and supernatural courage. Before diving into individual stories, Jesus helped me understand the broader context. These were not superhuman saints, but ordinary men thrust into extraordinary circumstances. Discipleship, Jesus explained, is not about perfection. It's about transformation. About choosing a path that goes against every human instinct of self-preservation. The Roman Empire of their time was not a welcoming place for a new religious movement. It was a world of brutal political oppression, complex religious tensions, and societal structures that violently resisted change. Each apostle, Jesus continued, represented a different facet of human response to divine calling. Some were passionate revolutionaries. Some were contemplative intellectuals. Some were simple laborers. But all were united by one thing, a willingness to be completely transformed. Jesus' revelation about John was unlike anything I could have imagined. This wasn't just the gentle disciple from Sunday school paintings. This was a complex, spiritually revolutionary figure. John's journey, Jesus explained, was about surviving and transcending. I experienced John's early life, a young fisherman with a volatile temperament. His nickname, one of the Sons of Thunder, wasn't just a casual title. It reflected a passionate, sometimes aggressive spirit that Jesus would gradually transform. The miraculous moment of his attempted execution in Rome became viscerally real. I felt the heat of the cauldron of boiling oil, the anticipation of excruciating death. But more shocking was the psychological warfare John endured. They didn't just want to kill him, Jesus revealed. They wanted to break his spirit. I witnessed the political machinations behind John's persecution, the complex interplay between Roman authorities, Jewish religious leaders, and the emerging Christian movement. John wasn't just a passive victim but an active spiritual revolutionary. His exile to Patmos was more than a punishment. It was a profound spiritual apprenticeship. The visions that would become revelation were not simple prophecies, but complex spiritual downloads that challenged the very fabric of human understanding. John saw beyond time, Jesus said. He experienced realities that would drive most minds to complete breakdown. Peter's story was even more shocking in its raw humanity. Jesus showed me the complete arc of a man totally remade by divine grace. I experienced his devastating denial, not as a simple moment of weakness, but as a complex psychological breakdown. The weight of guilt, the crushing sense of betrayal, the complete shattering of self-image. But more profound was the restoration. I felt the intimate moment when Jesus personally rehabilitated Peter, turning his most significant failure into his greatest strength. His crucifixion in Rome was not just a death, it was a complete theological statement. The decision to be crucified upside down wasn't merely an act of humility. It was a profound philosophical and spiritual declaration about human unworthiness and divine grace. The story of James, both James, son of Zebedee, and James the Less, revealed the brutal political landscape of the early church. King Herod's execution wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a calculated political move designed to suppress a growing movement that threatened established power structures. I felt the cold steel of the sword and experienced the moment of execution. But Jesus revealed the deeper narrative, the complex tensions between the emerging Christian movement and the established religious and political authorities. Martyrdom was never romantic, Jesus said plainly. It was raw, painful, and deeply political. Andrew's story was far more complex than the peripheral character often portrayed in biblical narratives. Jesus revealed a man of profound spiritual and political depth. Most people misunderstand Andrew, Jesus explained. They see him as Peter's brother, a secondary character. But Andrew was a revolutionary in his own right. I experienced his missionary journeys, not the sanitized version from traditional teachings, but the raw, brutal reality of spreading a message that challenged entire societal structures. His crucifixion in Patras, Greece, was more than a simple execution. It was a complex political and spiritual battlefield. The X-shaped cross wasn't just a method of execution. It was a symbol of defiance, of complete surrender, of a revolution that transcended physical existence. I felt Andrew's internal struggle, the moments of doubt, the psychological warfare of facing certain death, the ultimate spiritual triumph that transformed physical suffering into a profound statement of faith. Philip's journey shocked me to my core. Beyond the simple narrative of a disciple who helped feed the multitude, Jesus revealed a deeply intellectual, profoundly committed spiritual revolutionary. I experienced the internal conflict that defined Philip's existence. The moment when Jesus challenged him about feeding 5,000 people was more than a simple test of faith. It was a profound psychological confrontation with human limitations and divine possibility. His missionary work in Samaria was not a peaceful evangelical journey. It was a dangerous, politically charged movement that challenged entire social and religious structures. Each miracle, each conversion was an act of radical social transformation. The crucifixion in Hierapolis was beyond physical torture. It was a complete psychological dismantling of everything Philip represented, a new way of understanding spirituality, community, and human potential. Simon's journey was perhaps the most politically charged of all the apostles. Jesus revealed a transformation so profound it defied historical understanding. From a fervent nationalist committed to violent rebellion against Roman occupation to a follower of a fundamentally different kind of revolution, Simon's transformation was anything but smooth. I felt the internal conflict, the tension between political rebellion and spiritual revolution. The moment he chose a kingdom not of this world over the earthly independence he once fought for was a complex psychological and spiritual turning point. His execution was beyond brutal. Flayed alive, cut in half, a punishment designed not just to kill the body, but to completely annihilate the spirit. Yet, Jesus showed me how Simon's spirit remained unbroken. They wanted to destroy his message, Jesus explained. But true revolution cannot be killed. Bartholomew's story emerged as perhaps the most shocking of all the apostles. Jesus revealed a missionary whose commitment went far beyond simple evangelism. I experienced his work in India, not as a peaceful missionary journey, but as a complex cultural and spiritual confrontation. Each conversion was an act of radical social transformation, challenging deeply entrenched religious and social structures. The narrative of his flying alive was more than a simple martyrdom. It was a profound statement about the power of spiritual conviction in the face of extreme physical suffering. They displayed his skin as a warning, Jesus revealed. But every drop of blood became a seed of faith that would transform continents. I felt the psychological and spiritual strength it took to face such a horrific death. Bartholomew wasn't just a victim. He was a spiritual warrior who understood that true transformation often requires ultimate sacrifice. Matthew's transformation was a narrative of complete social upheaval. Jesus showed me the life of a tax collector, the ultimate social pariah, a man despised by his own people. The moment Jesus called him was more than a simple invitation. It was a complete social and spiritual dismantling of everything Matthew had known. His missionary journeys to Ethiopia and Persia were dangerous, politically charged movements that challenged entire social structures. Each step was a radical act of social and spiritual rebellion. The martyrdom in Nob was the culmination of a life that completely rejected social norms, that chose a radical path of spiritual transformation over personal comfort and safety. Thomas's story was far more complex than the simplistic doubting Thomas narrative that had been perpetuated through centuries of religious teaching. Jesus revealed a deeply intellectual, profoundly spiritual individual whose journey was defined by honest questioning and ultimate transformation. Doubt is not the enemy of faith. It is the pathway to deeper understanding, Jesus explained. I experienced Thomas's internal struggle, the intellectual rigor that defined his approach to spirituality. His famous moment of skepticism wasn't a failure of faith, but a profound commitment to authentic spiritual experience. His missionary journey to India was not a simple evangelistic mission. It was a complex cultural and intellectual confrontation. Thomas brought not just a message, but a completely revolutionary way of understanding spirituality that challenged deeply entrenched religious and social structures. The martyrdom in Chennai was more than a simple execution. It was the ultimate testament to a journey from skepticism to absolute conviction. Speared to death, Thomas represented the ultimate transformation, a man who moved from questioning to complete surrender. Judas Thaddeus emerged not as a minor character, but as a crucial messenger of a profound spiritual revolution. Jesus revealed a disciple whose story had been largely overlooked, but whose impact was immeasurable. I witnessed his missionary work in Mesopotamia and Persia, dangerous journeys through politically volatile territories. Each step was a radical act of spiritual courage, challenging established religious and cultural norms. His potential martyrdom, whether by axe or stoning, was not just an end, but a continuation of a message of hope for those considered hopeless. Judas Thaddeus represented the apostolic mission at its most profound, bringing hope to the most marginalized. The most shocking revelation was about Judas Iscariot. Jesus shattered every conventional narrative, revealing a story of cosmic complexity that went far beyond simple betrayal. I felt Judas's internal torment in a way that defied traditional understanding. The moment Satan entered him was not a simple demonic possession, but a profound spiritual battle that represented the deeper tensions of human free will and divine plan. Judas's story, Jesus said, is not about condemnation. It is about the devastating consequences of losing hope, of misunderstanding divine purpose. I experienced the crushing weight of guilt, the moment of ultimate despair that led to his suicide. But Jesus revealed something more profound, the cosmic significance of Judas's actions in the broader narrative of redemption. Jesus didn't just reveal individual stories. He showed me the interconnected spiritual landscape of the early Christian movement. These were not isolated individuals, but a revolutionary community challenging every established social, religious, and political norm. Discipleship, Jesus explained, is never about individual heroism. It's about a collective transformation that challenges the very foundations of human understanding. I saw how each apostle's journey was interconnected, how their individual stories wove together into a larger narrative of spiritual revolution. Their martyrdoms were not defeats, but profound acts of spiritual testimony that would transform the world. When I awakened in the hospital, I was fundamentally changed. The doctors said I had been clinically dead for 17 minutes. My family was in shock, but I carried with me a spiritual understanding that defied conventional explanation. The stories of the apostles were no longer distant historical accounts. They were living testimonies of faith that challenged everything about comfortable, modern Christianity. Why me? I had asked Jesus during my experience. His response was both a calling and a challenge. Every soul has a purpose. These apostles sacrificed everything to spread a message of love. Now, it's your turn to share their true stories. In the weeks and months following my near-death experience, I struggled to integrate what I had witnessed. My previous life, the carefully managed suburban existence, seemed shallow and meaningless compared to the profound spiritual realities I had experienced. My relationships changed. My understanding of faith was completely reconstructed. I found myself seeing the world through a lens of spiritual possibility that went far beyond traditional religious narratives. The apostles were not saints on pedestals. They were ordinary men who did extraordinary things through a combination of human vulnerability and divine transformation. Their stories are not just historical accounts. They are invitations to live with a courage that defies human understanding. My near-death experience changed everything. And I hope by sharing this, it might change something for you too.